but men have to produce the robots, and men have to produce other things. So we're having definitely a skill shift and what we call disruptive entrepreneurship, which will add to value. But as far as Nigeria is concerned, inclusive growth, small and medium-scale enterprises getting funding, as you can see from Development Bank and all that, that is what is going to get people to work at the grassroots level in this country.
We have an economy, informal economy, almost 85% of the population. How do we get that into the labor market when we say May Day, Labor Day?
Well, the truth is that in a population of 170 or 80 million people, we have only 7 million RSA accounts in the pension, right? So you have a workforce where only 10 or 12% of them are contributing to the pension scheme. And even that, there's a backlog. So, again, the engagement of the small and medium-scale enterprises, the people that employ 5, 6 people, the subsistence agriculture. Nigeria is number 3 in the world in terms of entrepreneurial activity. 38% of Nigerians all have a business on the side. So you engage your driver, your driver's wife has a store, and the money she makes from her shop is more than what he gets in the income. The combined income of the family is not the 50,000 naira you pay the driver or 40,000. It is the combined income from the wife's shop and the driver's income. So you must understand that Nigeria is the second largest producer of tubers and yam tubers and everything in the world, next to China. About 10% of all of that is produced, is consumed by the farmers themselves. So our GDP is probably larger than that which is recorded. So if you take the informal economy in terms of productivity, informal economy in terms of consumption, informal economy in terms of savings, it gives you a better picture. That's why you're not seeing people die of famine and all of that. But we cannot take that for granted. We need to grow enough, more than our population rate, one. We need to grow enough.
I was about to ask you that very sticky question.
Yes.
Should we start doing population growth? Because the World Bank, IMF recently said, look, Africa's growth is being dragged back because the population seems to be overtaking job creation.
Well, again, the culture, the World Bank and others are of Western culture, the Western civilization. In Africa, we have our own, the bigger the family, the stronger so we need to reconcile these Western values with our own basic indigenous anthropological values. So I'm not going to talk about
so we're going to keep our population, but we need to work very hard therefore from the opposite side.
Productivity has to increase. This year, labor productivity was -4%, and the GDP growth was -1.5%, which means that the labor productivity and idle labor has dragged down our GDP. Now, what is the main cause of this? Power outage, logistics issues, of course, people being laid off. But you will see that in 2017 to 2018, as the economy recovers, you begin to see better engagement. You begin to see investment. You know, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you were on that road yesterday. The rail, we paid our counterpart funding of 72 billion naira to the Chinese. That is transformational. If between Dugbe and Ido, it takes me 1 hour in the morning, why? And why should I pay rent to live in Nigeria or anywhere, or Magodo or wherever? I might as well live in a beautiful place in Ibadan or in Shagamu, catch the train, and in 30 minutes I'm at work in Lagos. What will that do to rents in Lagos and rents in Ibadan and Shagamu? It changes the picture.
I'm thinking about that very seriously. Perhaps I should just get a rent on land very quickly ahead of time.
Yes.
Or ahead of folks like you. Because when big boys like you get to Ibadan, so rent in Ibadan will start skyrocketing. I think I better pay rent there today and just hold it down. Finally, as far as the market is concerned, how do you see the labor issues? Big companies on the stock exchange, Nestle, Cadbury, Nigerian Breweries, Guinness, First Bank, these are the big employers. Do they think they just hold that?
I have two views. One is that labor costs have not increased as much as finance costs and distribution costs. So even if you doubled your wages and you could increase productivity, the country is better off. An increase in compensation also leads to an increase in consumption, which means the demand for the products of these companies will increase. However, we're not just increasing salaries for the sake of it. Has to be dimensioned, and that's why I use the dimension of inflation, I use the dimension of exchange rate adjustment, I use the dimension of petrol subsidy removal, and I use the dimension of cost-reflective tariffs and on power.
Electricity.
Now, when you put all of that together, if these things are happening almost simultaneously, productivity will increase, and the companies, quite frankly, can afford whatever they can afford. They don't need to be told. So you may come back to a period where, in a year or two, when we begin to see increase in employment levels, increase in investment first. That's the first thing. You can't just, there must be an increase in investment, increase in government investment, increase in government expenditure, and better transparency, accountability in government practice, so that all of this will lead to an aggregate increase in output. And this is what has happened in China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, in the Southeast Asia. And those countries have actually grown very fast.
Very interesting, and it's nice to have you on the program. Thank you very much. We may let you just continue on your journey.
Okay.
If you are going the same way to Ibadan.
All right.
Well, we may as well have another conversation, find out if you're already into real estate or some business. But it's a public holiday. Thank you very much. Bismarck Rwani is an economist and chief executive officer at Financial Derivatives Company. Of course, you remember the month of May will have a lot on the calendar. The presidents of Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana, and other countries will be in Abuja May 15 and 16 for the Leading Africa Infrastructure Summit and to mark the 10th anniversary of the Africa Finance Corporation. We're expecting delegates from almost a dozen countries across the continent. In the meantime, the African Development Bank will hold its annual meetings in Ahmedabad in India, May the 22nd to 26th, a week meeting of the #1 development finance institution on the continent. And of course, you remember, May 29, President Buhari's administration will mark his 2 years in office. I'm sure anyone here will not forget that on his calendar. Let's come back to you after the break, where we'll take a look at what happens tomorrow when the holiday is over and we're back to business.